Okay, chapter 5. So a man named Ananias, together with his wife Sapphira, sold a piece of property, just like who did? Barnabas. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money for himself. So in Luke's terminology, what does that tell us about Ananias? He's of the devil. It's clear for Luke. You're one way or the other. And how you deal with money shows who you're with. So he kept back part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. He tried to look good, didn't he? Tried to look good. Anybody in your church like that? Anybody try to look good in front of everybody? There's always this shadow community in the church of people who want to look good while their hearts are not right. That happens. Then Peter said, Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you've lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for the land? Now, how does that remark strike you? Where does Peter get? Where's Peter get that? How does Peter know that? Why does he say that? That's rather harsh. Maybe. Well, let's think about Luke again. I think it's helpful to think of Luke's literary communication. What have we just said about Luke? He says, if you share your possessions, you're of God. If you don't, you're of the devil. Peter knows he hasn't shared. Yeah. Well, Luke knows it. Therefore, he's of the devil. Simple as that. He's of the devil. Satan has done this to you. Satan has filled your heart. Anybody who's greedy and doesn't share, it's the work of the devil. For Luke, that's just straightforward, axiomatic. The lie to the Holy Spirit is to do something that looks like what the Holy Spirit would do. Barnabas gave out of his heart from the love shed abroad in his heart by the Holy Spirit. This is counterfeit. This is fake. You just fake the work of the Holy Spirit. For me, that's what I take lying to the Holy Spirit to be, is faking a good work of the Holy Spirit. And it's not. That's a lie. He said, didn't it belong to you before it was sold? After it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not lied to men, but to God. Wow. So when you lie to Peter, you lie to God. Does that show Peter's in charge? Of the 12 at least? Yeah. These are the leaders of the people. And you go back, this classic case, remember the story of Achan? And Luke seems to have in mind the story of Achan here, is that when you lie to the leaders of God's people, you have lied to God, and God will exact vengeance for lying to his leadership.
You will be Achan.
And you will be Achan.
Earth will not shake, it will swallow you.
When Ananias heard this, he fell down and died. Wow. And great fear seized all who heard what had happened. All of a sudden, we've lost this Acts 2 happy, happy, happy church. And now they got the hell scared out of them. This is the part I find good. Then the young men came forward, wrapped up his body, and carried him out and buried him. Who are these guys?
Yeah, let's just go ahead.
Who are these guys standing around waiting for somebody to croak? Come running in. Hey, Paul Harris over here. Clean up on aisle 4. I mean, to me, it's just as funny. Luke has, the young men come running out. We go, okay, but body, we go. And somehow I see them dressed in black. Like, like Paul Bear. I just see this little comedy scene.
Bring out your dead. It's a Monty Python. I'm not dead.
About 3 hours later, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. I mean, it's just such a setup of a story. You know, the reader anticipates and just knows this is not good. You can imagine the first time you've ever read this, if you've never read it before. Just you go, uh-oh, this is not good, this doesn't bode well. Peter asked her, tell me, is this the price you and Ananias got for the land? Yes, she said, that is the price. Peter said to her, how could you agree to test the Spirit of the Lord? Look, the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. At that moment she fell down at his feet and died, and the young men came in, finding her dead, carried her out. Whoop, another one. Oh, what were they thinking? Are we done for the day yet? How many more? How many more are we going to have to carry out of here before this day is over? Notice where she fell down dead at. At his feet. False submission. Then the young men came in, carried her out, buried her beside her husband. Great fear. Same word, remember that earlier was translated awe? Now it's fear. I think the translators are going with the flavor of the story, which is appropriate to translate the word fear. Phobos. Great fear seized the whole church. Whoa. Who are these men? This is the first use by Luke of the word ecclesia. First time he calls it the church. So the whole assembly and all who heard about these events. So the apostles are not simply human administrators of funds, are they? They are prophets, and they lead the people of God. And to lie to them is to lie to God. Number one message I suggest is these are God's leaders, God's prophets over the restored people of Israel. Don't mess with them. Remember Achan? Don't mess with them, because these are like unto Joshua. And Jesus was like unto Moses. Don't mess with God's leaders. Don't fear the Sanhedrin. You better fear the apostles. And they did. So the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders because they were prophets among the people. And all the believers, again, I think this may mean just the apostles. I don't know. If you read it, Luke sometimes seems to be ambiguous what the group is he's talking about. So anyway, all the believers used to meet together in Solomon's colonnade. How many believers were there if you take it to be the whole church now? 5,000. Here's why I think that all the believers actually means the apostles, because you read it in context. Verse 13, no one else dared join them, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Now, if you read that to mean all the believers, then the church isn't growing. But Luke keeps saying it is. So my reading is that all the believers means the apostles. And when it says no one else dared join them, I think it means the apostles, even though they were highly regarded by the people. And I mean, good grief, 2 people just dropped dead. I don't think I'm going to go over and talk to Peter. Say, there's Peter over there colonnade. Okay, where's the exit? It's dangerous to talk to Peter. Again, but respect for the leaders. These people have authority. They have power. And look at the next verse. Nevertheless, more and more men and women believed in the Lord and were added to their number. Now, the only way to put that together, in my estimation, is to assume that by all the believers, Luke, in that case, means the apostles. Because otherwise, this just doesn't make any kind of sense at all. So more and more men and women believed and were added to their number. So we got 5,000 and growing. As a result, people brought the sick. Peter's shadow fell on them as he passed by. Wow. Wow, he's doing stuff Jesus didn't even do. The woman touched the hem of Jesus' garment, was healed, and now Peter's shadow is healing people. This certainly shows a transference of power and authority. Crowds gathered from the towns around Jerusalem and bringing their sick and those tormented by evil spirits, and all of them were healed.